Good morning. Thank you for joining me today. Appreciate it. So, live on a dairy farm, so normally we have nice milk to spice up the coffee with, but we just dried up the cows recently, so now I'm trying to cope with almond milk. Oh. But anyway, let's read the Bible here. Genesis 13, verse 5 through 15, verse 21. Now Lot, who was traveling with Abram, also had flocks, herds, and tents, but the land could not support them while they were living side by side, because their possessions were so great. They were not able to live alongside one another. So there were quarrels between Abram's herdsmen and Lot's herdsmen. Now the Canaanites and the Perizzites were living in the land at the time. Abram said to Lot, Let there be no quarreling between me and you, and between my herdsmen and your herdsmen, for we are close relatives. Is not the whole land before you? Separate yourself now from me. If you go to the left, I'll go to the right, but if you go to the right, then I'll go to the left. Lot looked up and saw the whole region of the Jordan. He noticed that all of it was well watered, before the Lord obliterated Sodom and Gomorrah, like the garden of the Lord, like the land of Egypt, all the way to Zoar. Lot chose for himself the whole region of the Jordan and traveled toward the east. So the relatives separated from each other. Abram settled in the land of Canaan, but Lot settled among the cities of the Jordan plain and pitched his tents next to Sodom. Now the people of Sodom were extremely wicked rebels against the Lord. After Lot had departed, the Lord said to Abram, Look from the place where you stand to the north, south, east, and west. I will give all the land that you see to you and to your descendants forever. And I will make your descendants like the dust of the earth, so that if anyone is able to count the dust of the earth, then your descendants also can be counted. Get up and walk throughout the land, for I will give it to you. So Abram moved his tents and went to live by the oaks of Mamre in Hebron, and he built an altar to the Lord there. At that time, Amraphel, king of Shinar, Arioch, king of Elasar, Chedorlaomer, king of Elam, and Tidal, king of nations, went to war against Bera, king of Sodom, Bersha, king of Gomorrah, Shinab, king of Admah, Shemeber, king of Zeboim, and the king of Bela, that is Zor. These last 5 kings joined forces in the valley of Siddim, that is the Salt Sea. For 12 years they had served Chedorlaomer, but in the 13th year they rebelled. In the 14th year, Chedorlaomer and the kings who were his allies came and defeated the Rephaites, and Ashtaroth, Karnaim, the Zizites in Ham, and the Amites in Shaveh, Kiriathaim, and the Horites in their hill country of Seir, as far as El Paran, which is near the desert. Then they attacked En Mishpat, that is Kadesh again, and they conquered all the territory of the Amalekites, as well as the Amorites who were living in Harazon Tamar. Then the king of Sodom, the king of Gomorrah, the king of Admah, the king of Zeboim, and the king of Bela, that is Zor, went out and prepared for battle, and the valley of Siddim they met. Chedorlaomer, king of Elam, Tidal, king of nations, Amraphel, king of Shinar, and Arioch, king of Elasar, 4 kings fought against 5. Now the valley... One sec. Now the valley of Siddim was full of tar pits. When the kings of Sodom and Gomorrah fled, they fell into them, but some survivors fled to the hills. The 4 victorious kings took all the possessions and food of Sodom and Gomorrah and left. They also took Abram's nephew Lot and his possessions when they left, for Lot was living in Sodom. a fugitive came and told Abram the Hebrew. Now Abram was living by the oaks of Mamre the Amorite, the brother of Eshcol and Aner. All these were allied by treaty with Abram. When Abram heard that, my goodness, that his nephew had been taken captive, he mobilized his 318 trained men who had been born in his household, and he pursued the invaders as far as Dan. And then during the night, Abram divided his forces against them and defeated them. He chased them as far as Hobah, which is north of Damascus. He retrieved all the stolen property. He also brought back his nephew Lot and his possessions, as well as the women and the rest of the people. After Abram returned from defeating Chedorlaomer and the kings who were with him, the king of Sodom went out to meet Abram in the valley of Shaveh, known as the King's Valley. Melchizedek, king of Salem, brought out bread and wine. Now he was the priest of the Most High God. He blessed Abram, saying, "Blessed be Abram by the Most High God, creator of heaven and earth. Worthy of praise is the Most High God, who delivered your enemies into your hand." Abram gave Melchizedek a tenth of everything. Then the king of Sodom said to Abram, "Give me the people and take the possessions for yourself." But Abram replied to the king of Sodom, "I raise my hand to the Lord, the Most High God, creator of heaven and earth, and vow that I will take nothing belonging to you, not even a thread, or the strap of a sandal. That way you can never say, 'It is I who made Abram rich.' I will take nothing except compensation for what the young men have eaten. As for the share of the men who went with me, Aner, Eshcol, and Mamre, let them take their share." After these things, the word of the Lord came to Abram in a vision. "Fear not, Abram, I am your shield, and the one who will reward you in great abundance." But Abram said, "O sovereign Lord, what will you give me, since I continue to be childless, and my heir is Eliezer of Damascus?" Abram added, "Since you have not given me a descendant, then look, one born in my house will be my heir." But look, the word of the Lord came to him, "This man will not be your heir, but instead a son who comes from your own body will be your heir." The Lord took him outside and said, "Gaze into the sky and count the stars, if you are able to count them." Then he said to him, "So will your descendants be." Abram believed the Lord, and the Lord considered his response of faith as proof of genuine loyalty. The Lord said to him, "I am the Lord who brought you out from Ur of the Chaldeans to give you this land to possess." But Abram said, "O sovereign Lord, by what can I know that I am to possess it?" The Lord said to him, "Take for me a heifer, a goat, and a ram, each 3 years old, along with a dove and a young pigeon." So Abram took all of these for him, and then cut them in two, and placed each half opposite the other, but he did not cut the birds in half. When birds of prey came down on the carcasses, Abram drove them away. When the sun went down, Abram fell sound asleep, and great terror overwhelmed him. Then the Lord said to Abram, "Know for certain that your descendants will be strangers in a foreign country. They will be enslaved and oppressed for 400 years. But I will execute judgment on the nation that they will serve. Afterward, they will come out with many possessions. But as for you, you will go to your ancestors in peace and be buried at a good old age. In the 4th generation, your descendants will return here, for the sins of the Amorites has not yet reached its limit." When the sun had gone down, and it was dark, a smoking fire pot with a flaming torch passed between the animal parts. That day the Lord made a covenant with Abram. "To your descendants I give this land, from the river of Egypt to the great river, the Euphrates River, the land of the Kenites, Kenizzites, Cadmonites, Hittites, Perizzites, Rephaites, Amorites, Canaanites, Girgashites, and Jebusites." Okay, then. Well, it's fresh in my mind here. Just commenting on this chapter 15 here. Yeah. This cutting the animals and walking between the parts was a famous type of treaty that was in place at the time of Abram. Essentially, the meaning is, for the parties that walk between the parts. If the treaty should be violated, let them become like these animals that are at their sides, that is, cut in two. But you'll notice that only the Lord walked through the parts and not Abram. So it wasn't Abram who was supposed to follow the treaty. It was the Lord. So that's always been interesting to me. It didn't depend on what Abram did. That the treaty be fulfilled. Also, you've got the War of the Kings here in chapter 14. And you've got kind of this gut negative reaction against the king of Sodom by Abram. In 14 verses 21 and 22, then the king of Sodom said to Abram, "Give me the people and take the possessions for yourself." But Abram replied to the king of Sodom, "I raise my hand to the Lord, the Most High God, creator of heaven and earth, and vow that I will take nothing belonging to you, not even a thread or a strap. That way you can never say it is I who made Abram rich." So, I'm going to go out on a limb here and say that king of Sodom and his land had a bad reputation previous to the whole Sodom and Gomorrah experience. And this Melchizedek in verse 18 is talked about a lot in Hebrews, where Jesus Christ is compared to Melchizedek, because this is before the Levitical priesthood that he is called priest of God Most High. And as such, he doesn't fulfill the roles of a traditional priest, because the priests had to be not only descendants of Levi, but also descendants of Aaron, who was a descendant of Levi. And Melchizedek was neither of these things, because neither of them had even been born yet. So, in the same way that Melchizedek was a priest of God Most High outside of the Levitical system, so too Jesus was, I suppose. Anyway, let's continue on. Matthew chapter 5, verses 27 through 48. "You have heard that it was said, 'Do not commit adultery.' But I say to you that whoever looks at a woman to desire her has already committed adultery with her in his heart. If your right eye causes you to sin, tear it out and throw it away. It is better to lose one of your members than to have your whole body thrown into hell. If your right hand causes you to sin, cut it off and throw it away. It is better to lose one of your members than to have your whole body go into hell. It was said, 'Whoever divorces his wife must give her a legal document.' But I say to you that everyone who divorces his wife except for immorality makes her commit adultery, and whoever marries a divorced woman commits adultery. Again, you have heard that it was said to an older generation, 'Do not break an oath, but fulfill your vows to the Lord.' But I say to you, do not take oaths at all, not by heaven, because it is the throne of God, not by earth, because it is his footstool, and not by Jerusalem, because it is the city of the great King. Do not take an oath by your head, because you are not able to make one hair white or black. Let your word be yes, yes, or no, no. More than this is from the evil one. You have heard that it was said, 'An eye for an eye, and a tooth for a tooth.' But I say to you, do not resist the evildoer. But whoever strikes you on the right cheek, turn the other to him as well. And if someone wants to sue you and take your tunic, give him your coat also. And if anyone forces you to go 1 mile, go with him 2. Give to the one who asks you, and do not reject the one who wants to borrow from you. You have heard that it was said, 'Love your neighbor and hate your enemy.' But I say to you, love your enemy, and pray for those who persecute you, so that you may be like your Father in heaven, since he causes the sun to rise on the evil and the good, and sends rain on the righteous and the unrighteous. For if you love those who love you, what reward do you have? Even the tax collectors do the same, don't they? And if you only greet your brothers, what more do you do? Even the Gentiles do the same, don't they? So then, be perfect, as your heavenly Father is perfect. Yeah. Can never remember a good commentary on this, unfortunately. According to David Guzik here, with the words, whoever looks at a woman, Jesus located the origin of lust back to the eyes. This is true according to biblical statements and life experience. When one seemed to pity a one-eyed man, he told him he had lost one of his enemies, a very thief that would have stolen away his heart. However, it is important to understand that Jesus is not saying that the act of adultery and adultery in the heart are the same thing. More than a few people have been deceived on this point and say, I've already committed adultery in my heart, so I may as well do it in practice. The act of adultery is far worse than adultery in the heart. Jesus' point is not to say they are the same things, but to say they are both sin, and both prohibited by the command against adultery. Yeah. And I think one can see that evolution between the Old Testament and the New Testament, indeed, even throughout the Old Testament, where you have these initial laws being set down and them not quite getting to the heart of the matter. But as it progresses, like you have, I think it was either Amos or Micah, I'm not sure, but what does the Lord require of you? To do justice, love mercy, and to walk humbly with your God. And you have Jesus saying the most important commandments: love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, and strength, and love your neighbor as yourself. So, and I think what Jesus is specifically pointing out here in bringing these things up is that the Pharisees who were considered righteous in that day were experts at following the law to the letter. But it's important to not just follow the law to the letter, because like if you only, like in verse 33, do not break an oath but fulfill your vows to the Lord. But I say to you, do not take oaths at all, not by heaven, and so on and so forth. The idea being that, oh, I only have to follow my word if I swear to you to do something, is pretty silly, because then what does your word normally mean? It doesn't mean much of anything. So, carrying on here, Psalm chapter 6, verses 1 through 10. Lord, do not rebuke me in your anger. Do not discipline me in your raging fury. Have mercy on me, Lord, for I am frail. Heal me, Lord, for my bones are shaking. I am absolutely terrified in you, Lord. How long will this continue? Relent, Lord, rescue me, deliver me because of your faithfulness. For no one remembers you in the realm of death, in Sheol, who gives you thanks. I am exhausted as I groan. All night long I drench my bed in tears. My tears saturate the cushion beneath me. My eyes grow dim from suffering. They grow weak because of all my enemies. Turn back from me, all you who behave wickedly, for the Lord has heard the sound of my weeping. The Lord has heard my appeal for mercy. The Lord has accepted my prayer. May all my enemies be humiliated and absolutely terrified. May they turn back and be suddenly humiliated. And finally, Proverbs, chapter 1, verse 29 through verse 33. Because they hated moral knowledge, that is, those who rejected wisdom, and did not choose to fear the Lord, they did not comply with my advice. They spurned all my rebuke. Therefore they will eat from the fruit of their way, and they will be stuffed full of their own counsel. For the waywardness of the simpletons will kill them, and the careless ease of fools will destroy them. But the one who listens to me will live in security, and will be at ease from the dread of harm. Yeah. Emphasizing that point, that they reap what they sow. So, don't reject wisdom. Okay, well, thank you for joining me today. Hope you have a great day. Bye.